You're listening to Tabletop and Beyond, the Guild 9 gaming podcast covering board games to war games and beyond.
All right, and welcome back to Tabletop and Beyond, your favorite podcast for gaming and much more. I'm your host, Justin, and I'm here with my compadres, Dan and Jason.
Hey, hey.
How's it going?
All right, we have a good show for you. We had a bit of a break. You may not see it in the episodes just because we'll be posting one after the other, but we had a little bit of a break because of some gaming conventions and other things going on. But we're live to you right now with some news that you can use and kind of what we're doing in our Geek Week. So let's kick it off with Geek Week. Dan, how was your Geek Week?
It was pretty great. Got to play in Android Genesis in our ongoing campaign, which was pretty fantastic. It's maturing along and having a great time. And I also ran the first episode of a 3-part Star Wars 3-shot mini arc. Had a great turnout. Everybody had a blast. And I don't know, Jay was there. Jay, were you there?
Yeah. Yes, I was.
Yeah, so I don't know.
I wasn't there.
Jay may be able to contest whether or not everybody had a blast, but
it was
I thought it was well received.
Yeah, lots of fun.
I'm bummed I missed it, but I knew I wasn't getting any brownie points to get there with the gaming convention in Las Vegas, so it just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
So tell us about Vegas.
So Jason and I went to Las Vegas for the Las Vegas Open, which is a big tabletop wargaming convention. It's primarily 40K. I think what they say, Jason, they had 880 40K players there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There was 170-ish Age of Sigmar players there. And then there was a smattering of, like War Hordes, War Machine, Bolt Action, Team Yankee, Infinity. Yep. I mean, those were all smaller games. I'd probably say those games max were like 30 people, you know. Maybe.
There was some Legion there, too.
Yeah, there was some Star Wars Legion, and there was X-Wing. So, for those of you that are familiar with the big conventions like Nova Open or Adepticon, I mean, Las Vegas Open is like one of the big wargaming conventions. So, I thought we did pretty good. I won 3 games, lost 2. The 2 guys I lost to both finished in the top 20. So I was much happier with my performance here at the Las Vegas Open than I did at the Nova Open. And my army is Night Haunt, which are like a bunch of ghosts. And I ended up getting Best Night Haunt, which means I did the best with my army out of everybody who played that army.
Congrats,
well
man.
Yeah, thanks. I was happy about that. I was surprised, actually, when they called my name.
Sweet.
I was too, but no.
Yeah, fair enough.
I was very happy for you. It was cool to play with nationally ranked people.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. How did you feel your games were, Jason?
Oh, they were a lot of fun. I got creamed in one game really hard. But besides that, every game I played, it was people that were in good spirits and really enjoyed playing. I will say that we had one game that was a little rough with the person. But most of the thing, that's what I love about this game, Age of Sigmar, is that most everyone I play is there to have fun and to be polite and cordial with you at the table.
That might actually be another topic of conversation for us, like a more in-depth topic, which is kind of the environments in the community and the communities of some of these different games, because 40K has a reputation. X-Wing, Dan, you could probably talk about the kind of the community aspect of that. Age of Sigmar's got a reputation.
Yeah, they all have their own kind of reps on their cultures that surround them.
So yeah, maybe that's another topic for another day of like why some of the cultures are the way they are and what makes a good culture. So,
fly casual, man. That's X-Wing's motto: fly casual.
Very cool. So any other Geek Week things, Jason?
Yeah, man. So, I'll just highlight 2 things. One, I got an email for the Gunfights and Gambling 6-shooter expansion, and if any of you have ever played Gunfights and Gambling, it's a little indie game. A guy and his wife, actually, that were going to they started with a Kickstarter a couple of years ago, and then decided they actually pulled the Kickstarter and said, we're just going to do it ourselves. So they created a little company called Mid-Level Meeple, and you can just go to midlevelmeeple.com. and you can see gunfights and gambling. It's a really fun game. It's a 4-player game. My family loves it. My kids love it. My wife even plays it with us at times.
This is the one that we played at Adepticon, or not Adepticon, at Catacon, right?
Yep, Catacon. Yeah, so it's what
really?
you would
That
think.
one?
It's a Western game with shooting pistols and drinking beer and or whiskey and burning down the town, and it's just a fun little game. But anyways, they released an expansion that now brings it to 6 players, adds in some extra buildings and some other things. So I'm excited for it. It's only $15 for the expansion. I think the base game is only like $30, so it's a really cheap buy-in for a fun game. I'd recommend you check it out.
I remember when you got it, I thought that was a good buy. And the only reason I didn't get it is because I expected to play it with you, which
Right.
I haven't. So there's that.
I've got it. Anytime. The other thing I wanted to pull up, my Geek Week is not gaming related, but I want to do a call out. Is my wife's out of town. I'm playing Mr. Mom this week, and usually when that happens, I have a hard time going to bed. And so I was up just kind of browsing Hulu for some movies, and Hulu had they had added a 2018 movie called Prospect, which is a sci-fi movie. It's a coming-of-age movie. Really, really recommend you check it out. It's got a really kind of like an Enemy Mine feeling, if those of you who can think back to that
I
movie.
love that. Love that.
Yeah.
With Dennis Quaid?
Yep.
Yeah.
So this movie is about, a young girl and her father who are basically like, they mine for special minerals on planets. And I won't get into too much detail, but they're down on this kind of like inhospitable planet where you've got to wear like, breathing filters and stuff. And it's just about, early on, her father gets into kind of a fight and tries to rob some people, and he gets killed, and she has to survive basically in this inhospitable planet with one of the thugs that killed her father throughout the whole movie. And it's just kind of how their relationship develops in a real interesting sci-fi setting. So recommend check it out on IMDb. Really cool. Really enjoyed that movie.
What's the name?
Prospect. So, and this is interesting, and we could have a whole nother talk about this in terms of ratings in the gaming industry. This movie is rated R, but there is nothing in this movie that makes it needed to be rated R. I mean, absolutely nothing. There's no sex. There's no nudity. There's like 10 cuss words, and not even like bad cuss words, if you think of that, whatever that means. There's nothing. There's absolutely nothing in the movie that means it needs to be rated R. And it was an indie film, or not an indie film, but it was based off of like a 14-minute short of the same name from a couple years prior.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's just another discussion for another time is how the rating system is, I think, a little bit biased and not really directly applicable to a lot of things. But anyways, great movie.
Very cool. Well, when I got back from Las Vegas Open, I put my models to the side and said I'm not going to touch them for a little while. Yeah, I was a little burned out after all the games that we played, which was totally fine.
Mine are still boxed up.
Yeah, mine are too. So I ended up picking up where I left off with Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I've been kind of working through that. If any of you know me, I am like Mr. Completionist. So like every little question mark, and there's like probably 1,000 little question marks in this game that I have to go explore and complete because that's just who I am with some of my video games. So I've been working through that, and I am now on season 15 of Supernatural. I have binged it over the last year. I'm getting caught up. I'm almost to the live shows now. And man, it's been a ride with that show. It's been a real ride.
It's a fun show.
Yeah, it's a great show. So
Makes you want to play Shadow of the Demon Lord now, doesn't it?
yeah, it's a great show. So
it's great to get inspiration for like individual like one-offs for like a fantasy setting.
Those episodes are great contained story modules.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like
Story
there's a
modules,
problem that happens. You got to try to figure out what's going on.
There's a monster at the end.
Yeah, and once you kind of figure out what it is, it's not quite what you think it is, and so I mean, they're great self-contained kind of sleuth stories that have monsters in them. So if you're ever wondering like, what am I gonna do for my campaign? For a session, for a couple of sessions, check out an episode of Supernatural. It's a kind of show, too, that you can turn it on halfway through and still follow it. It's not, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what's going on here. There's two dudes who are brothers who are fighting monsters.
And when you first hear about Leviathans, you can just skip 2 seasons. Ugh. It's such a drag.
Hey, I got one more Geek Week thing.
Yeah, what's up, man?
I bought my Gen Con 4-day pass.
Oh, there we go.
That
Is a pretty big one. So part of what prompted us to start a podcast like this is that we get a group of guys together every year to go to big Gen Con, obviously, and maybe some other conventions and things like that. But Gen Con's kind of our big one that we do. And we started our Guild 9 gaming group from that year that we all, like 9 of us went to Gen Con, right? And so you'll definitely hear a lot more about what's coming up and how we plan for Gen Con. In fact, that'll probably be another episode in the next couple that we should probably get into, like, how do you prep for Gen Con?
Yeah.
I'm
But
excited.
yeah, tickets are out now. If you don't have them, get them. They tend to sell out, especially the 4-day pass ones. So,
You
yeah,
gonna GM,
get it up.
Dan?
No, I never do. I haven't GM'd at a con that big. I've GM'd at smaller cons. So, for me, I kind of need more freedom than like being locked in and the stress of putting on a game.
Yeah, Justin and I GM'd one year at Gen Con. We did a Shadow of the Demon Lord, and it was a ton of fun. But I'm with you. I felt I had a lot of fun, and it was gaming, and it was great to game with people around the table. I just want also a little bit more freedom in terms of being able to just find something and be like, I just want to play that right now.
Yeah, I'm in charge of a lot of things at work. So going on vacation and being in charge of something is not as fun.
So, and I'd like to point out, though, that Jason and I set aside essentially 12 gaming hours of Gen Con, which is essentially a whole day of gaming, to DM our 3 sessions, because what we were going for was the paid-for badge called the GM badge, right? Yeah. And so it was essentially $120 savings if we did, 12 hours worth of gaming, which for me was like, hey, this is great because then I can spend, $120 on games or merchandise or whatever, and I still get a DM. But, at the end of it, I was like, well, it did cost me pretty much a whole day's worth of gaming that I could have gone and done other systems or tried other board games or whatever it was. But if you're still interested in DMing, you could always just do one session or bring one game. Like, you don't have to go for the GM badge to GM a session.
I might do that just because I've been to a bunch of Gen Cons where I never end up playing my favorite games. I end up playing other things that other people want to do, which is fine too. Gets you out of your comfort zone, but if you have a burning need to run a game, it's a great place to do it. And then there's lots of people who want. Hey, Gen Con doesn't work if people don't volunteer to run games, either board game, war game, whatever. So somebody has to volunteer somewhere.
I think I'm gonna GM a mothership session.
Oh, that'd be a blast.
Just for the fun of it. Yeah, just because it's fun.
That's a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun. That's great. Another topic for another day, a mothership review.
So
all right.
We've included all of our listeners into our show prep session of how many topics can we identify in 13 minutes.
Exactly. That's pretty great. Okay, so let's move on to kind of what type of gaming stuff caught our eye in the news. Jason, why don't you take us away? Yes, start with that one.
Okay, so there's been a giant Kickstarter that kicked off and funded really fast. And I'm just gonna say I don't see it, man. So it's the Level Up game table, right? A portable tabletop extension. So it basically, let's say that you've always got like a bunch of crap on your table, and none of us have kitchen tables, it seems, ever big enough to fit all of the components and maps and everything that go on the table when we play these giant games like, Arkham Horror or, I don't know, just other games. That's a good example.
Not to mention your drinks and your snacks and your pad of paper and your pens.
And you'll see, like, when you go to, like, gaming pubs, they have, there's little tricks they have, like the drink holder's actually attached to the table, so your drink's not on the table. It's in a little cubby and stuff. But so these guys said, hey, let's make this table that has these legs, and you can actually put another table, like a multi-tier table. Turn your table into a multi-tier table. So now you've got kind of a sub table that sits, maybe, I don't know, what is it, like 5 to 6 inches
Yeah.
up off of your current table with a bunch of legs. As I'm watching it, I'm watching the Kickstarter number continue to go up as people are funding this.
Now,
So
describe
obviously
the
this is a
legs.
good idea for
You have
a
to
lot of
describe the legs of this table, though. What are they?
the legs.
Yeah.
They're like, they're like little, I don't know, like 4 millimeter diameter posts with little
I saw a
rubber
picture of
nooks
soda
on the end.
cans holding one up.
Oh, no. Okay, that would be goofy. If you scroll down, if you go to their Kickstarter page and you scroll down, level up. I think it's actually called the Level Up. Yep, it's the name of the Kickstarter page. And just scroll down, you'll see the picture of the legs. So they're little. They're kind of like just little posts. The thing. Okay, so we've described something that seems like a cool idea, and I think it is a cool idea, and I think it could be for some situations, like if you do the really small one that sits inside the table, so that your drinks and crap can kind of be on the outside. My concern is that I feel like it's a recipe for like a disaster with bumping the
Absolute
table.
disaster.
Like what happens if like, you go to grab your drink and you raise it a little bit, you bump the table, you bump the thing, or I
And
feel
then
like
it tips over
yeah.
over everybody else's drink on the other side of the table. Game pieces are flying everywhere. Could you imagine playing like Scythe on that game? On that
my
table?
gosh.
And then
Yeah.
tipping it?
It reminded me of those pizza parlor things, when
Oh,
they
yes.
used to have the pizza
And that's
parlor
great for
tables.
pizza.
I don't know. I don't know
Great
why
for
gaming
pizza.
reminds me of food, but but no, I'm with you. I looked at it and went. Let me give them some credit. If this is something that attaches onto anybody's table, good bully for them, right? You could use it on any kitchen table. I'm guessing that's what it's for, right? It's
Yeah.
a table that sits on a table. So
It gives you more real estate too, right?
I'm
So
one
if
of
you
these-
only have like a 4x, not even a 4x, like a 3x4 kitchen table, all of a sudden you've got double that amount of real estate that you can put stuff on.
I mean, I am one of these gamers that's constantly chasing the table dragon, and I'm never happy with what I have. And I've thrown some money at it. You start out with Costco tables, and then you move up to tables that are designed for gaming that are the right size, 4 feet by 6 feet. But those are crappy for RPGs, and what you really want is something that's like $20,000.
Yeah, that's got
nobody
like
ever- I don't know
LED
anybody who's
lights
ever got
and
one of those.
chargers built in and all that stuff.
Right.
I think
So-
it's, and it's important, Dan, to give it credit. The thing that's really cool about this table is its interlocking grid system. Like the components of the table, it actually breaks down very small. Like you could throw this table into your backpack, kind of a thing. And I think that is cool. So if you think of it as a table by itself, that's cool. Like if you're just going to get something and just set it up, on the floor or something. I think what I'm worried more about is the implementation of it on top of another table that's got soda cans. And if it's me and a bunch of adults that are paying attention to what we're doing, cool. Because all of us are used to like having our drinks, in the middle of the game board and not spilling it on the components. I just think my kids are going to knock that thing and it's going to go flying.
What's the buy-in cost for a table?
Looking at it right now, I'm trying to find the one that it looks like 56 pounds. Or no, 48 pounds. So about $62.
Okay.
It's not bad if you want something that's an interlocking breakdown table, but I don't know. I just feel like there are several other things you could kind of come up with. If somebody just wants a complete solution, there you go.
So
I think-
there is a market for inexpensive solutions.
Right.
I mean, I dropped on my alpha table $250 or something like that. And it's not perfect. It's very, very useful, but it's not perfect.
And I think it's a very useful table because it's so portable. But when you have one of those things up, it feels kind of rickety,
Yeah.
especially when
alpha
you're
table?
playing minis over it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm with you. No, the problem is you just have to, your furniture has to adapt to your square footage of what you got,
Yeah.
So
Anyways,
Yeah.
more power to them. I think it's the interlocking components that allow you to break it down. I think is probably is what would grab me to want to buy it. But in terms of putting it on top of my actual table to put components on it, I don't know if I'd want to do that.
So,
Cool.
thanks for that, Jason. Keeping with the Kickstarter theme, we've actually got a couple Kickstarters. I feel like a bunch of Kickstarters came out just after the first of the year. Am I wrong on that?
That
It feels
makes
like
sense.
a bunch dropped. But
You don't
anyway,
drop them before the Christmas holiday.
yeah,
That's-
I mean, why
that's
would you,
ridiculous.
right? Yeah. So, anyway, one of the Kickstarters that came out that caught our attention, and especially me being a mini guy, is Hero Forge 2.0's full color custom miniatures. The crazy thing about this is they were going for $40,000. They now have $2.276 million pledged to this goal. Literally, we're talking about this 20 minutes ago, and it was $2.75 million. So they've gained $1,000 within 20 minutes on this. Like, they are going gangbusters on this. This is kind of revolutionary in the miniature game in the sense that you can customize your miniature. You get to choose the legs, the hands, the arms, the head, the face, the hair, any accessories you want, the type of armor you want, the type of cloth that you want. And they can print that to whatever colors you want. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with 3D printing. For the most part, you get one color and then you got to paint it yourself. And they've got lines in it. Well, that's not the case with Hero Forge. They're going to print it out for you, and it is custom colors. You can decide what it is. It's pretty amazing. They've got kind of three options that you can go: basic, unpainted, so you just get your gray mini. You can go the color printed, so like they'll have the actual materials that are being used for that component is a specific color, or you can go higher detail and have them professionally paint it for you, which is obviously going to cost a little bit. But one of the things that is cool about Hero Forge is that it's customized, right? If I am playing a wood elf barbarian, for example, which you don't see a lot of wood elf barbarians, but I'm sure they're out there.
Somebody's got one, and we're laughing at that guy, and he's
Yeah.
a genius.
And you know what? You're not going to go into a game store and find the Nolzar's Magnificent Miniatures. I'm sure I butchered that name, but the D&D minis that are out there, or a WizKid mini, and find a Wood Elf Barbarian that suits your taste. You can on Hero Forge, though.
No.
I mean, you can come up with anything you want, and if you're not the greatest painter in the world, or you don't have all the paints or the brushes or the tools or whatever, you can have it printed or painted for you. And there you go. You go to your next game and you've got your Wood Elf Barbarian ready to go. It's pretty
Yeah,
amazing.
those printers cost like $200,000 a pop, but apparently they've raised enough money to turn a profit on at least getting one. I worry about the number of people that have signed up and what the line is going to look like now to get yours out of there.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Getting in the queue, right?
But I think it's great. I've tried to paint minis. They all look horrible. I buy a lot of Wizards of the Coast minis because they come pre-painted. I love a pre-painted mini. So anything that lowers the barrier for guys like me who are not going to go sit down and do the time is, take the time to learn how to paint, execute it well. It's a good thing. It's a really good thing.
Yeah, so the buy-in is at the lowest level is $39. Now that's $40 for a mini, but it is fully colored, customized the way you want it to go. If you were to buy a miniature for like a D&D miniature that's not customized, so you may be settling, on the kind of miniature you get. That's going to cost you anywhere from $5 to $8. And then to have somebody paint it for you is probably going to be another $10 to $15 if you were to do it that way. So you're talking, I don't know, somewhere between $20 and $25 to have a fully painted, off the shelf D&D mini.
And some of our listeners may not be familiar with how customizable Hero Forge is. You
Yeah.
go in and do the facial expression.
Oh,
You can do a
the
smirk.
pose.
You can do a scowl. Hand positions. There's so many infinite combinations, and they're constantly adding new costumes and new weapons and items all the time.
It's pretty awesome. So, and the interface is really easy. If it's something you've been considering, I would say back this thing because you probably won't. To get this deal again, I guarantee you it's going to be like $50 for
Yeah.
for Hero Forge mini later on. You know
My
what I mean?
problem
That-
is,
that's
as
colored.
soon as I want to customize a mini, Justin, somebody ends the campaign.
Or you die.
You die. Like, oh, there's $40 on this custom mini.
Yeah, but you have him forever. He's forever in your heart. So there's that. Let's see. What other Kickstarter? Dan, you want to talk about Dark Tower?
So Dark Tower, it's a game I wasn't really familiar with until until the Kickstarter came out. But having a tower in the middle of the game board that's an interactive part of the game, and it's dropping skulls, and it's like another kind of AI thing. Not AI, maybe that's a step too far, but it's another fantasy adventure thing. It looks really cool.
So is it like Descent type of thing?
I think it's a cooperative fantasy game. It hits all those tropes, the classic tropes, I believe. I'm not an expert on this, so if I'm speaking out of school, I apologize. But
I have been getting a lot of ads for this game in my feed, so they're pushing the campaign pretty hard. I've noticed.
the interaction of the tower just isn't like a cool prop in the middle of the game board to make it look cool. It's got motors in it. It's rotating. It's got chits it's dropping that affects gameplay. So, it's a lot of. We talked last time about apps that you play with and how they interface with the game, how that adds to the experience. Well, now there's a robot that's going to drop stuff on you, and you hope you don't get hit by something. So, it's a totally different thing. We've got some friends that have already joined the Kickstarter, so I'm looking forward to playing it when it shows up.
Yeah.
For sure. Definitely. Okay.
And
any other items
how much
in the news?
Sorry, Justin. How much did it was up to a couple $1,000,000, right?
I am not sure. I can look it up real quick though. But yeah, I mean, it seems to be going gangbusters, and I see.
So it went to 4 million.
Jeez.
Wow. So that's maybe what we need to do is develop our own game and then get $1 million off of it or something, right?
Right. It's easy. What are we doing?
It's easy. I mean, in all honesty, here's another topic: the role of Kickstarter funding a lot of gaming companies, right? Like Cool Minis or not, CMON. I mean, they started out as just like a little miniature thing, and then they started putting out some games. They got big ones like Zombicide that came out. They got other big miniature games, and like now, anytime they put out any kind of miniature games, it's pulling in like $4 or $5 million because like they know like what the quality is of those types of games, and they come with a lot of minis.
Mm-hmm.
So
minis is a
Exciting
big
times.
thing right now, man.
Yeah.
It pulls. If you have good looking minis, you can pull people to back your project. I think, even if no one understands the mechanics yet.
yeah, absolutely. So that's what we need to do. We need to sculpt our own minis. Easy day.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. One of the reasons I got interested in Deep Madness was because of all of the amazingly sculpted minis. Part of me was like, well, even if the game sucks, they're gonna be fun to paint.
Dark
But-
Souls is insane. Those miniatures are not miniatures; they're
Those are pretty good.
miniatures. They're crazy.
Yeah, they're pretty big. Pretty big.
That's an interesting one though, because they had a franchise they had to live up to when they created that game.
That's
an
true.
established franchise that they knew they couldn't disappoint with that. Great game.
Yeah.
They did a great job putting it to the board.
All right. Anything else in the news that caught your guys' eye?
I just want to give a shout out to Joe Manganiello. I can't pronounce his last name for introducing D&D to a bunch of kids who are under treatment at a children's hospital. What a classy guy to go do that. Him and his brother, spending time with kids that are kind of shut in for health reasons, and introducing fantasy to them, and having them kind of their minds expand a little bit. Kids are in a rough place when they're in long-term care, and I just hearing that a celebrity and his brother would take that kind of time out of their LA actor lifestyle celebrity day just to hang out with these kids is really heartwarming, and really reflects great on the hobby.
Listen, Joe first captured my heart by being in the latest Pee Wee Herman movie.
He's just
So-
a solid dude.
I was like a fan of him then, but now, like, he can do no wrong.
Yeah. There's and speaking of D&D celebrities, it looks like there's a new D&D source book, which is going to be one of the biggest products Wizards of the Coast has ever put out for D&D for Critical Role.
Yeah, this is the big one, right? Like, this is the one that Matthew Mercer was working on. It's the Explorer's Guide to Wildemount. And basically, it's the source book for his whole world that he created for Critical Role. And it's pretty big. I mean, what do they say? It's going for about $40. And there's 304 pages of materials in there that you can create your own campaign. There's 4 starting adventures in 4 different regions. There's 3 different subclasses of, for your characters. Couple of different magic spells and kind of a different brand of magic. There's a lot. There's a lot in here. I think that he did a really good job of pulling all this stuff together. It's going to be huge. I mean, it's essentially a new D&D realm. Like, we're talking like there's, Eberron, there's the Forgotten Isles, there's
none of those combined are going to sell as much as this book.
I agree.
About 50% of new D&D players are coming into D&D through Critical Role, so that's not insignificant. Wizards of the Coast understands where their customers are coming from.
Which is interesting because you saw that Critical Role, they're kind of doing their own thing, but now they've fully gotten lock in step with Wizards of the Coast. I think that both of them realize that they are better together than working separate. That they will definitely conquer the world together.
Yeah.
The world of role-playing.
Woohoo.
Yeah, so
I
it looks
just need
really
to grow
cool.
my hair out long like Matt Mercer so I can be cool.
Is that what makes Matt Mercer cool?
It's his hairdo.
I tried it. It doesn't work for everybody.
No.
Very good. Well, I'll be looking forward to seeing kind of the contents of that book. You can order it now. It's available for pre-order, and they said that it ships on March 17th. So that's only a month and a week away. Month and 2 weeks, I guess. So not too long before it would ship. So you'd probably see it by the end of March if you pre-order it. So, yeah, pretty cool. I'll be interested to see how many campaigns start up after that. Let's see. All right, well, let's get into our topic of the day.
There's got to be some stats somewhere that's like every 5 minutes there's a new campaign starting.
Every time a bell rings,
right?
a tiefling gets his wings.
That's right. There we go. Somewhere in the world, right now, someone's rolling up a character.
That's right.
Somebody just got 18 on an attribute. Yes.
So speaking of rolling up characters, let's talk about kind of our topic of the day, which is a game review of DnD Beyond, which is the online character and campaign management system that Wizards of the Coast has put out for primarily DMs, but players can take advantage of it too. Are you familiar with D&D Beyond? Have you used it at all or poked around on it at all?
My nephews are obsessed with it. They run all their campaigns off of it, and they don't pay a nickel.
Really?
So maybe one of them will have like a starter set, and then they go straight to Beyond. And I watched them, recently when I was visiting out west, and they were just on that site nonstop. And so, I'm old school. I get out the book, and I photocopy a character sheet with a pencil. But these kids, man, they are min-maxing on D&D Beyond and making cool characters. And I'm sitting there going like, well, it doesn't have, but I bought this book and it should have all my feats and it should have all my talents and it doesn't and it's not perfect. And why do they want to charge me twice? Nerd complaint. My young teenage nephews don't give a crap. That is the thing that's fueling their D&D straight up.
So the interesting thing, from my personal experience is I've only ever bought the DM guide. for D&D, right? The DM manual. That's the only book that I've ever bought. I didn't even buy the Player's Handbook. However, when D&D Beyond first launched, they had a deal where it was like $180 or something like that for their entire library content on D&D Beyond at that point. And it was like 50% off. Like it was like retail would have been like $400 or something like that. And I said $180, like I just happened to have it at that moment, and I said I'm doing it. So I ended up buying it. Because when I went into D&D Beyond, you could roll up a pretty basic character, but one of the things that I noticed that is like unless you bought the Player's Handbook, you couldn't get into some of the sub factions that were available in the Player's Handbook to customize your character. So like you couldn't do a wood elf. You could only just do a generic elf. You couldn't do or like a hill dwarf. You couldn't do that, like because the Player Handbook wasn't unlocked. You just had the very basic stuff. So when I went to go look up some of the other source materials as well, because I didn't have, the Dungeons Master's Guide in there or the Monster Manual, like some of those things weren't pulling up for me because I didn't have the content. So when that sale came out, I ended up getting it, and it was pretty awesome because what it did is it pulled in all the subclasses from all of the other books. So the Into the Abyss had some interesting monsters that weren't in the Monster Manual or the Player's Guide, I think the what was the giant one? The Storm.
Oh yeah. I'm blanking.
I keep saying Stormcast, but that's Age of Sigmar.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Get with the program, Justin.
Yes, man, I'm totally blanking here. But anyway, that giant one, where you went to the lightning giant's place, they had like some subclasses in that book that you could customize your things to, and that would automatically populate into the character creation sheets. So I thought that was pretty slick to be able to pull in all of that stuff. Now, here's some of the pros of it. Here and this is part of the free to use app. So if you can create your character and you like it, this is a great thing to use on like a tablet or I guess phone to a certain extent, but it's really built for a tablet. You can put that tablet in front of you and it's your whole character sheet, right? And the best thing about it is you're like, okay, I'm going to cast Magic Missile here. Boom. And you cast it, and you can tap on that, and it'll count it as one of your spell slots. So you just have to tap it, and you've already marked down like how many spells you've used, right? And then when you click on like take a long rest, boom, all of that stuff clears out automatically so that you're ready to go next time. It does the same thing with some of your inspiration points. It does the same thing with ammo. So like if you have a DM who is really kind of like particular about like keeping track of how many arrows you have in your quiver, like every time you shoot you can just tap it and it'll make that arrow count go down, and it's just a super easy way of keeping track of it rather than being like, oh wait, did I mark it here on my sheet last time or where did I put it? And it's just really super easy to level up. When you level up, it prompts you through like, okay, well, you're at this level now. You get to choose a new spell. You can choose either a character stat or a feat. Which one would you like to do? I mean, it walks you through the whole process, and it's almost foolproof. Especially like where sometimes there's some confusion about like, okay, my hit roll dice, and if I roll a certain amount, then I get hit points from that. It'll calculate all of that stuff for you. So it's really nice. You can print it out. Like I used to update it on D&D Beyond and print it out for my game before every game. And you can print it out and mark on it, or you can run it from your phone or tablet. So it's pretty cool. And obviously, if you've got the source materials, you can customize it more. But one of the cool things is that if you do get a subscription, so let's say I am the DM and I get a subscription and I've got all the source materials, right? If I pay the monthly fee, I can have up to 12 players utilize my subscription, which means that if Dan and Jason, if you guys were to create characters under my campaign that I'm setting up, you have access to all of my source materials.
You haven't invited me, and I'm already offended.
Well, I haven't paid for the subscription. So that's the thing. Is like, even the free account, like I can't invite you to use all of my source materials. But if I paid for the subscription, I could. And the cool thing is that I've got a bunch of campaign books, right? That I can run the campaign from the thing. And there's points where you can level up or give different items, and it integrates pretty well with the campaign and keeping track of the characters within that as well. So it's pretty cool because the DM can allow people to piggyback on there, and he can get into the character sheets and kind of, if somebody's messing around with something, he can kind of make sure that everybody's keeping on track. I mean, that's one of the hardest things. It's like everybody sets up their characters, and the DM's like, okay, let me see your character sheets, and someone's like, oh, okay, here it is, and you can barely read the writing. Or whatever, like, I don't know if you filled this out correctly or not.
They feel like it's like an oversight moment. That's like, what, you think I'm cheating?
Right.
You feel like you're being accused of cheating to hand over a character sheet.
Yeah.
It's so much better to just LoJack everybody on DnD Beyond, so you can just lurk them.
Well,
so much better.
That's true. And I'll be honest too. Like the character creation process online is so much simpler because it just literally takes you through step by step, and so the margin for error is much smaller by doing it on D&D Beyond than it is if especially with new players, and they're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to roll. What do you mean I'm supposed to roll like 3 dice and take my 2 highest or whatever it is? That margin for error is so much smaller because you just it'll say roll these dice and choose this. Boom, that's your stat, and you literally go through all of them, and then it'll be like, well, choose this or this. And so you're not having to like give a new player a player manual and say like, all right, just go through this book and create your character. What I mean?
So
like it's a little overwhelming.
As an example, I just logged in and from scratch created a rogue thief style character in about 3 minutes.
Was it
from
a halfling?
Start to finish.
Was
Boom,
it
boom,
a
boom, boom, boom,
halfling?
boom, clicking stuff that all seemed to make sense for the character. And now I'm staring at the character sheet, ready to play a game.
You're ready to go. Just while we were talking, you were totally
Just while you were
distracted from
talking.
the conversation.
And that was the free app right there too, right? So I
Yep.
mean, if you got one of those simple $20 starter sets from Target, and you weren't too crazy about the pre-gens that were in there, you could direct your players to go to D&D Beyond and create their own very basic character, the same stuff as what you'd find in the pre-gens, and let them customize to a certain extent. And then if they like it from there, then you can maybe get some more of the source material. Now, obviously, the biggest complaint about D&D Beyond is the purchasing it twice, right? I think that is probably the biggest hurdle for 90% of established RPG players out there. Wouldn't you think so?
That's why I haven't done it, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, what books do you have right now? D&D books.
For 5e, I only have a couple. I think I've got a player's handbook and Xanatar's guide because I was a player and I wanted to use both of those resources. But
Yeah,
I
And
haven't
I mean, I
needed the
have the
monster
Out of the
manual or
Abyss.
anything like that.
that's right, Jason. You got the Out of the Abyss book, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so having to buy those twice is kind of a pain in the butt. I wish there was a way that you could like maybe
Scan the barcode.
Scan the barcode, but I mean everybody's barcode.
You're never
same.
going to
Yeah.
see it. We're never going to see it. There's not enough money in RPG for them to do that. It's just I know how much it costs to buy developer time to build that app and to keep it going, to QA that thing.
Yeah.
And those selling of those books is just another revenue stream next to the monthly fee.
You know what
Yeah.
might what might be nice though is if they did it like I don't know, in college I saw this all the time, right? There would be the book that comes with the little like one-time code use that you had to like unwrap,
Right.
like it was some sort of like publisher clearinghouse $1 million check or something like that, and you would open it up and it would give you access to the online content. But what if, like, you bought the book for $40, the player's handbook for $40 or whatever it is, and you were able to pull out a code there, and it gave you the online version for $10.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
You got to realize that I think they know about all those options, and they could have
Yeah.
done that. They could have vacuum sealed every player's handbook with a code. You know, they could have done everything you've just suggested. They've passed on that, and I think it's because of the small retailers, the friendly local game shops. When you take away the total requirement to go buy a player's handbook, your local gaming shop is going to feel that, because I watched all my nephews play, and they were only, a group of 6 teenage kids had only invested, $20 into the starter kit, and they were 100% into D&D Beyond. I bought my nephew a GM screen because he didn't have a GM screen. He had a piece of cardboard. So these, so in our day, back in the day, I mean, everybody would have gone at least bought 1 or 2 books. So I think Wizards of the Coast knows not to alienate that particular demographic by taunting them with, "Hey, why don't you just move to D&D Beyond and skip brick and mortar?"
I think, though, that by doing kind of a 2-for-1, where you can get the book and then the code for an extra $10, I don't know if that's totally skipping the brick and mortar. Like, you can go into the brick and mortar and get the book, and then get online too. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
I think both people are happy. Let's just talking about kind of the subscriptions that you can do. There's a hero tier that's intended primarily for players. So this removes kind of the ads that you have. It allows you to create an unlimited number of characters. The free app only lets you do I think 5 or 6 characters. So it gets a little tricky. Like I have like 1 for my daughter, 1 for my son, 1 for my other daughter, and then 2 for some campaigns that I was playing in. And I think I'm already at my limit.
That's pretty generous if it's 1 per login.
Yeah,
that's pretty generous.
That's true. Or
5 per login is what I mean, or whatever, 6 per login.
Yeah. Now, again, this is all separate from unlocking content. So I unlocked the content, so I can access that all no problem. This is just about your character creation and management. And so the hero tier doesn't really work for game masters, because it doesn't allow the integration with the campaigns. So the hero tier annually is like $26. Billed once a year, which isn't terrible. That's not a terrible price. And especially if you're really into this game, like, I mean, $26 over the year is like, what, 50 cents a week? Like, that's not a lot, right?
Yeah.
If you do it monthly, it's like $3 a month. So that, works out to like $36 a year.
I mean, I'm paying way more for Netflix and CBS All Access and Disney Plus and.
Now go ahead, Jason.
I was just gonna say, I think I have a coworker who is a huge DM guy, and he is 100% Beyond. Him and I both were in it when we beta tested D&D Beyond.
Yeah.
I kind of beta tested for a little bit, but I just really loved the books just because I was so used to the books. But he was just straight into the digital. He never buys a book anymore.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, you should check out this. This was really cool. And he's like, oh yeah, I picked it up on Beyond. And like he will never buy another hard book, because when he plays, he sets up his DM screen, and right on the other side of that DM screen is a tiny little Chromebook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he just got it up, or he's got his tablet, and it's just up, and he's just got everything right there in that little tablet, instead of having 7 to 8 books stacked on an additional table sitting next to him because there was no room behind the DM screen.
Yeah, and let's be honest, if the search feature is any good, that's like printing your own money, to be honest, because
some of the stuff is awesome. Like, I was running
times I've had to flip through book after book after book going, I know there's this thing here, I just can't find it.
Control F in the real world.
Yeah. And so, like, I was running the Sunless Citadel campaign for my kids, right? Which was just a great little dungeon crawler. And it was in the It was in the
Tales from the Yawning Portal.
Yeah, Tales from the Yawning Portal that came out. And so I was running that adventure with him, and what was great is they would find an encounter and it said, the party encounters 4 orcs at this part. Well, you could hover over the orcs and their entire stat sheet pulled up if you just hovered over it. And I'm like,
cool stuff.
Awesome, because now I can roll it and I don't have to flip back and forth to a monster page to figure out what their stats are. You know what I mean? I can just hover over it and I keep my spot and I keep going. So it's pretty awesome. Now the master tier that I think is great for dungeon masters and player groups, it's $54.99 a year if you do it annually. It's $5.99 a month if you do it monthly. So $6 a month. Listen, this is one of those things that if you have a dedicated group of people, this is worth a conversation to say, listen, I can give you access to all of this content. And we can kind of run the campaign in there. It'll, we can buy the book. We can have all this stuff. There are 6 of us. If we all paid $10 for the year, then we can do this. Do you know what I mean? And have access to all of it, and help have it run more smoothly. And I think that a lot of people would like that. Having your character sheet in game on a tablet or a little Chromebook is fantastic. I mean, some people love the pen and paper, but it's a pretty slick interface now.
And it's great that it's not some third party doing this on the sly to avoid copyright. And there's so many apps like that where somebody's trying to make a buck off of an IP and they have to change things and make it look like it's not what it is in order for it to be on the App Store. So the fact that this is a corporate sponsored thing, there's a point in the future, and I don't know what day that will be, when there's no hardbound books, no paper character sheets, no plastic dice. And to get there is what D&D and Beyond is. We're just not there yet fully. So whether it's this decade or the next decade, there'll be a point in time where we go, oh yeah, remember when we did RPGs and we had to have those dead trees. And I'm just glad they're doing it. I'm glad they're leaning into the future.
It'll be interesting for me to see what other game systems decide to integrate technology. I mean, our whole last episode was about technology. I actually think that this is a good use of technology. If you're into D&D, I think it's worth the investment, especially if you haven't bought a lot of books. You can buy them online instead of a hard one, and then have everything right there forever, essentially. Even if you cancel your subscription, you still have access to the content that you had purchased, right? So it'll be interesting to see some of these more indie games, like maybe a Shadow of the Demon Lord system, or let's say Star Wars FFG. What kind of technology are they going to move to, if at all, given the popularity of the D&D Beyond that's kind of been moving. So something to kind of keep an eye on as we move forward.
The fact that it didn't crash and die should put everybody on notice, because when it first came out and it was in beta, there was a lot of hand-wringing.
Yeah.
But here we are all these months and months and months later, and it's just picking up a lot of steam. So they
keep coming out with... Yeah, they keep coming out with new stuff. I just noticed the other day that there was an encounter builder where you don't have to do the math so much anymore. You just say, here's my party of all these people, and I want to build a hard encounter. And you can kind of, choose the monsters you want, and it'll tell you if that makes a hard or too hard or easy encounter for them. I mean, before it was okay, well, there's this many points per day that they can fight, and this many points per encounter. Otherwise, it's lethal, and
I would argue that calculator is a little bit of a band-aid on poor game design, but I'm not going to use this as an opportunity to slap D&D upside the head for not being perfect.
Fair enough.
The fact that they have that is great. Anytime that they can put things underneath the hood and nobody sees the engine running, that's fine. But at the same time, there's too many random encounter tables for my RPG taste in D&D, where it feels like time not well spent when, and so anyway, I'll get off my high horse now. I'll shut up.
Fair enough. Well, if you guys haven't checked out D&D Beyond, go ahead and go to their thing. Sign up for a free account. I mean, it's super easy, and again, it's free. You can poke around on it. Jason just created a character, so who knows if he's going to go off and play this week with it. Maybe by himself even.
We just TPK'd his whole group while we were on this conversation. That character is dead.
That's right.
He's dead. He's
already dead.
Gone.
Awesome.
He's fireballed.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us this week on Tabletop and Beyond. We very much appreciate you listening to us. Please, if you like the podcast, give us some feedback, like it, share it, send it out to your friends. Let's get a community going up. We'd love to hear from you and build something together. So thanks for listening.
Later.
See you guys.
Take care.